Getting ready to go. What? Getting ready to go. I said, getting ready to go. What in the world? Getting ready to go. Talking about.
Okay, so last week I was pretty excited when the judge overruled Proposition 8 in California, and I did a four-part, 45-minute long video reading out the major points in the decision. But I've been meaning to do a commentary video about it ever since then. However, I'll be honest with you guys, I was sort of hoping that the Atheist Antidote would put out a video on the subject because I knew Brock would cover all the bullshit arguments in one video, and then I could refute them all from a single YouTuber. However, unfortunately, he hasn't decided to make that video. So I've got a few different people here. I'm not, picking on these people in any way, and I hold no animosity towards any of them. I'm just using these people because they're making some very common arguments.
There's one part of this whole argument and situation that I think is very interesting and people need to be spending more time thinking about, and that's the fact that this judge who handed down the ruling is homosexual. Now, that seems like a conflict of interest to me, and I hope like it would seem that way to most people.
See, that's an incredibly presumptuous argument because it refutes itself. I mean, had it been the other way around and a heterosexual judge ruled in favor of upholding Proposition 8, would that have been, controversial as some kind of conflict of interest? Would it have been implied that he was somehow biased against gays just because he ruled against, the plaintiffs? Really? I don't know, man. I don't think that's fair. I don't think we can't just say that the judge is biased, because either way the judge could be biased. A gay judge could be biased or not. A heterosexual judge could be biased or not. Where's the difference? It's a self-refuting argument.
And what will be really interesting to see, too, is when this goes to the Supreme Court, as I suspect it will, what happens if the judges in Washington, D.C. decide that, oh yes, actually Proposition 8 is unconstitutional? That will be very, very interesting to see, because then it's going to be the case that the judges sitting on a bench in Washington, D.C. are telling the citizens of California on the other side of the country that no, actually you can't get together and govern yourselves in this way.
Well, with respect, man, proximity is completely irrelevant when it comes to the Constitution. The Constitution is for all 50 states. Even Hawaii and Alaska are affected by what happens in the Supreme Court.
Well, it happened. Judge Vaughn Walker, with the stroke of a pen, upended the votes of 7 million Californians in the Perry versus Schwarzenegger case and said that Proposition 8 needed to be overturned. This makes no sense. We know that marriage is the union of a man and a woman, but a San Francisco judge has imposed his will on the voters of California, and not just California, because Judge Walker is claiming what is obviously incorrect, that there is a U.S. constitutional right to redefine marriage.
Not so, not so. That's a fallacy, and I want to shoot that one down now. And the best way to do that is to read some excerpts directly from the ruling, so it doesn't come across like it's my own opinion. First of all, the parties did not dispute that the right to marry was fundamental. The question presented is whether plaintiffs seek to exercise the fundamental right to marry, or, because they are couples of the same sex, whether they seek recognition of a new right. That was the arguments being presented. Anyway, continuing with the reading. Never has the state inquired into the procreative capacity or intent before issuing a marriage license. Indeed, a marriage license is more than a license to have procreative sexual intercourse. And I think anybody who's been married would agree with the fact that marriage is a lot more than permission to have sex. Continuing with the excerpt here. The evidence shows that the movement of marriage away from a gendered institution and towards an institution free from state-mandated gender roles reflects an evolution in the understanding of gender rather than a change in marriage. The evidence did not show any historical purpose for excluding same-sex couples from marriage, as states have never required spouses to have an ability or willingness to procreate in order to marry. So that is completely fallacious when you say it's all about redefining marriage. It's about a deeper more modern understanding of gender and of equality. Okay, next up is a guy called Red Coyote 7, and he's definitely a conservative American, quite patriotic and so forth, and I like no beef with that. However, his opinions I obviously disagree with. Let's get into it.
Proposition 8 has been overturned. Proposition 8, was the will of the people, voted and said that marriage is between a man and a woman, and that's the way we want it. Of course, the gay people sued, and I'm sorry, the homosexuals sued and said that it is unconstitutional. Went before a federal judge, and the federal judge today ruled that it is indeed unconstitutional. That's just so gay. What a gay verdict.
Hilarious. I see what you did there.
This time I'm pulling over to read what a California proposition is. A ballot proposition enacted by the initiative proposition is approved by more than 50% of all voters who vote. It becomes a part of the state constitution.
Indeed, no one disputes that the state of California can change its own state constitution according to a popular vote. However, no state in the Union can enact any laws by popular vote or through the state legislature, which are contradictory to the U.S. Constitution. And this is where the 14th Amendment comes into play. I'm going to read you the beginning article in the 14th Amendment because it's absolutely pertinent here. And let's not forget, this is from our Constitution that we cherish, and these rights are yours as well as gays and lesbians, all right? All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and the state wherein they reside. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of the citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. All right? So no state shall make any or enforce any law that abridges the privileges and immunities of the citizens. In other words, you can't break the Constitution by making local laws for states. It's right there in the 14th Amendment. Also, it says no state shall deprive any person of liberty without due process. Part of liberty is the pursuit of happiness, and marriage has been recognized as a fundamental right, not just by the United States, but internationally. Anyway, and moving along to the equal protection part of it, in the Equal Protection Clause, as it's been applied throughout history, is basically all about not allowing the state to create a separate class of citizens, that people have to have the same rights protected by the state universally. These rights are yours, as well as gays and lesbians, and we should all cherish this. This is, in my personal favorite amendment outside of the Bill of Rights, and you know, we have to respect the Constitution.
So we know that over 7 million people voted to uphold the definition of marriage as between a man and a woman, the same definition of marriage that has been there since the beginning of time. One judge overturns it. One judge.
Yes, it's called checks and balances, and our republic depends on them.
Now it goes to the 9th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals, which is often called the Circus. The ninth Circus Court of Appeals. They'll probably maintain this judge's decision because they're very liberal, which really doesn't matter because it's going to end up at the Supreme Court anyway, and probably end up having a 5-4 decision to uphold the will of the people.
That may indeed happen. It also may split the other direction, 5-4, or for all any of us know, it could end up being a much wider margin. I wouldn't be surprised. The constitutional issues here are pretty straightforward and clear, and I think if you actually go to the trouble of reading the ruling, you'll find it pretty hard to argue against, and I strongly recommend doing so. I will link the ruling in the description to this video should you be inclined to go have a look at it online. Okay, just wanted to touch on one final thing, and that's a argument that I had in a comment section to a video which was in favor of the decision last week. I never met the guy whose video this was before, just happened to stumble across it. But anyway, in the comment section of this video, I got in an argument with this conservative fellow. Probably going to keep on going on after I make this video. But anyway, he made some pretty standard arguments that I also wanted to address, but I'm just going to pick up the actual conversation because I think it's pretty sort of stereotypical of this kind of thing. We were arguing about, whether or not the judge had the right to overturn it in the first place. And I reminded him, I'm going to start with my own quote here, "No state shall enact laws that violate the Constitution. The same laws that protect your rights have been applied here to protect the rights of same-sex couples. The 14th Amendment guarantees equal protection for all citizens. Proposition 8 violated that principle. Even the proponents of Prop 8 at trial could come up with no rational basis to justify the state treating homosexuals unequally. It's an unambiguous and meticulous ruling. Read it." To which he replied, "Same-sex couples have never in the history of the planet had the right to call their relationships marriage. Marriage is between men and women. No rights were violated. Proposition 8 did not violate the 14th Amendment. If that is the case, laws forbidding incestuous or polygamous marriage are also unconstitutional. People who engage in homosexual activity are not treated unequally because everyone is beholden to the same marriage standard of one man to one woman." To which I replied, "Wrong, nice try. Read the ruling, it's pretty straightforward." To which he replied, "No, you are wrong. One man's opinion is not the law of the land." See, here we go again with the one judge thing. The ruling was wrong and incorrect. He's entitled to that opinion, but here we go. I say back to him, "It's not one man's opinion. If you read the ruling, you'll see that it is built on numerous precedents, which are opinions of previous judges, and is backed up quite clearly by the 14th Amendment, which ensures the right to equal protection and states no person shall be deprived of liberty without due process. The right to marry is fundamental. Even Prop 8 proponents agreed to that. It stripped rights away without due process and created a separate class, which is unconstitutional." And he says back to me, "You don't understand the 14th Amendment. Protection is not based on sexual behavior, or any behavior for that matter. Marriage has never been denied to people who call themselves homosexuals. They can marry under the same rules as everyone else. A union between two people of the same gender has never been marriage. To call it such is insensitive." And then he goes on with another straw man, which I'll ignore right now. I'm just going to finish off here because this is the last one. Again, I say, if you actually read the ruling, you will see that there is ample precedent that sexual behavior, sexuality and orientation, is protected by the 14th Amendment. There is also ample precedent to establish that marriage is not about sex nor about producing children. You give yourself away when you say calling same-sex union a marriage is insensitive. The Constitution protects people's lives, liberty, and rights, not their feelings.